Good morning, everyone. It is another very warm morning here. But we're told that actually the high is going to be like this morning, and it's supposed to go down into the colder temps as the day progresses, which is fine because otherwise, you know, we had a lot of snow in this area, and yeah, there'd be a lot of flooding. And there's some areas that people are very concerned with, the creeks and the ice dams and all that kind of stuff forming. But I wanted to show you something that I did not know. Did that make sense? Yeah, that I did not know existed until this Christmas when my husband received this as a gift. My son gave him this. It's a coffee mug, but it is a Yeti coffee mug. And I could not believe how efficient this thing is. Now this thing is huge. I mean, this like holds almost 4 cups of coffee, and yeah, that's a little ridiculous. I would get the smaller size, but that being said, when you think about 4 cups of coffee in this thing, what I did this morning just to test it out, because my husband said, he says, hey, I poured it into my mug at 8:30, and at midnight, it was still as hot as when he had first put it in it. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay. Well, what I did is when my coffee pot was, you know, got down to the last 4 cups of coffee in there, I thought, I'm going to put it in here to keep it warm. Because, you know, if I return that on, it just starts getting bitter and bitter and bitter, right? So I put it in here, and I want to show you. This was approximately 2 hours ago, and it is steaming hot. I don't know whether or not you're able to see the steam coming up, but it is steaming hot. And I just thought I'd let you know, because they sell different sizes. You do not have to get one that's 4 cups, for goodness sakes. But yeah, this is definitely worth the investment if you are one that likes to take coffee with you in the car. Anyways, I hope that you want to join me for a little bit of my day, and my tongue really needs to start working properly, and I will talk to you in just a little while. Hello, everyone. I thought that I would take a moment and I would talk to you about Thrive Life Foods. And the first thing I want to say is no, I am not a distributor. I'm only a customer. But I've had quite a few questions about Thrive Life Foods, and one subscriber asked me if I thought it was worth it. And I replied to her that you need to use discretion. And what I wanted to talk about is, honestly, Thrive Life is wonderful. And it really isn't all that expensive when you think about what it is you're getting. But that being said, there are some things that you can still buy cheaper at the grocery store. And I'll show you what I mean. Beans, dried beans. Thrive Life also sells dried beans. And theirs is actually freeze-dried, so I really don't, maybe they're not. I honestly don't know, but they sell these dried beans. And I was able to get each one of these packs for under $1. So for me, it's easier for me to slowly build up a supply of dried beans that I can do relatively inexpensively than what it is for me to buy a large can of their beans that's going to cost me more. Yeah, there's more in it, but it's also initially going to cost me more. So for me, buying these ends up saving me, because I don't have a whole lot of money to put out for a large supply. This way I can build it up more slowly. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is rice. this is another thing. You can get rice relatively inexpensively. And again, it's the same thing. You can buy, gosh, how big is this? This is 5 pounds of rice. I think it cost me under $2. So I can build up a supply of rice, or I can buy their larger can and have a lot of it. But that's also a lot more expensive at one time. So these are some of the things that I do not buy from Thrive Life. I don't buy their mashed potatoes. I do not buy their rice or their dried beans. What I do buy are things that don't come freeze-dried or dried, like celery and vegetables, peas, spinach, kale, yellow squash, butternut squash, all those things. These are things that I can't buy them. So the only way I'm going to be able to get them is to buy them fresh and can them myself. But again, even that, when you take in your electricity or your gas that you're using, the energy that you're using to make it, maybe Thrive Life is the way to go. Now, I am not buying this so that I can use it on a daily basis. I'm really not. What I'm buying my Thrive Life for is so that I have a food storage of non-perishable food for emergencies. But again, you need to use discretion. You need to figure out what is the cheapest route to go. They have a very good product line. I've been very satisfied with the way the product works. And yeah, I will continue to get it. And one of the things I like about Thrive Life is that if you don't want to get it that month, you can skip it. And they're not going to automatically turn that skip back on for you. It stays skipped till you go in and unskip it. You can buy as much or as little as you want for that month. So I like it. I think that it's a good company. I haven't had any problems working with them at all. Now, granted, I've only worked with them now for 4 or 5 months. And in December, I skipped mine. I just was going to get to a point financially where it's like, this is going to be too big of a burden. So I skipped it. The other thing I want to encourage you to do is to find a distributor that you can trust. And there are some good ones here on YouTube. Ones that will email you back, call you on the phone if you request that. Because you need to be able to be in touch to answer your questions. So anyways, I hope this has helped somebody. Encourage you to look into it. And I'll talk to all of you in just a little while. For today's devotion, we will be reading from Ephesians chapter 2, verses 4 through 8. But God, being rich in mercy because of his great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in our transgressions, made us alive together with Christ. By grace you have been saved, and raised us up with him, and seated us with him in the heavenly places in Christ Jesus, so that in the ages to come he might show the surpassing riches of his grace in kindness toward us in Christ Jesus. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God. It's imperative for us as believers to fully understand exactly what has been completed for us in Christ Jesus. So what are the riches of God's grace? And how do we define grace? A common definition is God's riches at Christ's expense. Another definition is the unmerited favor of God. And another is simply God's love set free. You see, grace incorporates all that God desired to do for mankind because of his love through the sacrificial death of his Son. His grace reached out and blessed us with every spiritual blessing in Christ, in accordance with His pleasure and will. In other words, the Christian life is becoming, in your experience, what you already are in your position in Christ. So many believers make the mistake of attempting to attain their position in Christ. After all, how can we ever reach the goal and attain without some effort? How can we get anywhere if we don't move forward? But the Lord has taught me through the years that the kingdom of heaven is backwards. When we try to do anything on our own, we miss everything. For Christianity begins not with a big do, but with a big done, which is backwards from an earthly perspective. As it stands to reason, we can't get done until we start to do, right? Which is why the book of Ephesians opens in chapter 1, verse 3, that God has blessed us with every spiritual blessing in the heavenly places in Christ. We are invited to enjoy what God has done for us, not to set out to try to attain it for ourselves. We can't do what God has already done. So the purpose of this devotion is to set forth that which is done through faith because of what He, Christ, has done through faith. We are able to rest in the finished work of Christ and our position in Him. And with that, I want to remind you, life happens. Let's enjoy it. And let's also remember that everything we end up doing is all through the power of Christ in us, not the power in ourselves. God bless, and I will talk to you tomorrow.